Hey, this is Connor with Unreal in a Nutshell, and this is going to be our second tutorial in this series on how to set up a simple mouse scroll camera transition where we can scroll from our third person camera like so. We can zoom in and out or to and from a minimum and a maximum distance, and then we can zoom all the way in to just transition straight to our first person camera, kind of like in the Fallout games and Skyrim. All right, so first off, we're going to want to go into our third person characters. To do that, we'll open up our content browser, go to third person, blueprints, and then third person character. The first thing we'll do inside of here is we'll create our toggle camera event. So we'll right click in our event graph and we'll do add custom event called toggle camera. If you followed along with the last tutorial, we did a simple camera swap using a single input. If you're following along from that tutorial and you would like to have this instead of that, I would just go ahead and get rid of all that. So get rid of the swapping camera using the single input with the flip-flop node, and then just follow along here like so. As all that is just to do with the camera swapping anyway. Okay, so with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and drag off of our execution node. And we'll type in switch on int. For our selection here, we're going to actually promote that to a variable. So we'll right click it, promote to variable, and we'll call this camera active index. And this will be our currently active camera index that we will use for the camera zoom. So to go from here, we'll go ahead and add 2 pins. We'll add a 0 pin and a 1 pin. We'll go ahead and right click the default and remove the default pin. We'll go ahead and get our FP camera, and we're going to want to set active. Once again, if you followed along with the last tutorial, if you still have your existing logic, you can actually just copy and paste this part here, and just make sure it's plugged in the same way. The first thing we're going to do with the FP camera is we're going to set it to set active false for our default 0, which is going to be the third person camera index. And then we'll go ahead and get our follow camera, and we'll set active. And we're going to plug this in like so and toggle this true. Afterwards, we'll type in set controller rotation yaw, and that will be false. And our FP camera active, we'll go ahead and drag that variable in from our last episode, and that will be false as well. For the next switch here, on the 1, we're going to once again drag up our FP camera, do set active. If you want, you can copy and paste this as well and just put it down here, whatever is quicker for you. Go ahead and plug this in. This time we're going to want to toggle it true. Off of the follow camera here, we'll set active once again, plug this in like so, and this will be false this time. Now we'll go ahead and copy our 2 booleans up here, plug this in like so, and toggle them both true for this. And that is our toggle camera event. We'll go ahead and select all that and then press C to comment, and we'll call this toggle camera event. And that is that. All right, so for the last part here, we're going to do our actual zoom logic. So for this tutorial purpose, I'm going to be using legacy input. In the future, we may use some enhanced input stuff, but for now, just to keep things simple, we're just going to use our standard legacy input here. So we'll right click in here and type in mouse wheel up, get that, and we want to get mouse wheel down, like so. So we have our 2 mouse wheel inputs. The next thing we're going to want to do from here is we are going to want to create a macro. So to do that, we we'll go over to our left-hand side here, click the plus icon in the macros section to create a new macro. We'll call this TP mouse zoom. I'm going to drag my output all the way over here so I have some room. And let's go ahead and add our inputs here. So for our inputs, we're going to create our first one. It'll be called scroll up. That will be an execution pin. Our second one will be called scroll down. And that will also be an execution pin, like so. We'll add another up here using this, right? And we'll call this zoom amount, and that will be the amount that we'll be zooming by when we call this macro. And this will be a float, so I'll make sure that's a float. Okay, so we're going to do the scroll up first. So I'll drag off this, type in branch. So if once again, if you're following along with the last tutorial, which I'm assuming you are if you're watching this, we created an FP camera active boolean, which tells us whether or not our first person camera is currently active. In our last tutorial, the first thing we're going to want to do before we set any of this up is we're going to want to check whether that is active or whether it's not active. I'm sorry. So we're going to actually drag off the false here because we don't want this to be active. We don't want to be able to scroll when we have the FP camera active, right? So that's basically all this is doing here. If you have your own checks in place, feel free to add them here. So we'll drag off the false, and actually, before we drag off of anything here, let's go ahead and get our camera boom, and we're going to get target arm length. So this is your third person spring arm here that we're getting, and we're basically just creating the zoom mechanics using our third person spring arm here. So off of this, we'll do a subtract, so minus, and we're going to do that by our zoom amount. So we're going to plug that in, like so. And we're going to want to drag off the subtract and do a clamp float. I'm going to make sure we get the one that says clamp float. And we're going to promote our minimum and maximum to variables. So we'll right click our minimum, promote to variable. We'll call this zoom min. And then we'll right click our maximum and call this zoom max. Let's go ahead and set these while we have it so we don't forget. So you can either click them here and set them on the side, or go over here and do it in your variable section. First, to do that, we need to compile. So compile. And now we can set it. So I'm going to just select them over here. For the zoom minimum, this is going to be the closest you want the camera to be able to get before it transitions into the first person camera. I would recommend using even values. So whatever your zoom amount is going to be here, whatever we set this as on the macro, that will be kind of what it's going to go by, right? So for my zoom minimum, I'm going to do 150. And then for the zoom maximum, I'm going to do about 750. Because I'll be incrementing when I go to set this, which I'll get to in a minute. We're going to set it to about probably 25. We'll be good. So anyway, off of the clamp here, we're going to go back to our camera boom. We want to set target arm length, like so. Drag that over here and plug the clamp return value straight into that. And off the false, plug that into our execution pin there for the target arm length. Then after this, we're going to want to promote or return to a variable in our float. We'll call this current camera distance, just so we have access to that if we need to use it. And then I'll get our current camera distance and set it. And then the last bit here, we're going to want to get our zoom minimum. And we're going to want to check to see if that is less than or equal to, just do less equal. Actually, the other way around. So we're going to want to make sure that our current camera distance, is less than or equal to our zoom minimum. if that is the case, so we'll do a branch here, drag off the return value of that, do a branch. If that is true, we'll continue with our scroll up output. So we'll go ahead and drag off the true and hover over this and do add pin node. Just let it go there, and it'll create a new output pin. And we're going to call this output scroll up out. Okay. All right, and then for the second part here, we'll do our scroll down. So for that part, it's going to be kind of similar, just basically the opposite. So I'm going to drag off of this and do a branch once more. We'll once again get our FP camera active and plug that in as the condition for that branch. And then I'm going to drag this down a little bit. We're going to want to get our camera boom again, so I'm just going to copy and paste it down here. And we'll get our target arm length once again. This time we're going to want to do an addition, so we'll do plus, it's easier, add. And then for this, we'll want to, for our mount here, we're going to want to get our zoom amount again, so we'll just, we'll drag off of our reroute value, or reroute pin here. To do that, once again, you can just double click any line here and it'll create a reroute node. Just plug that in like so. And we're going to want to drag off of this and do a clamp once again. So clamp float. And we'll go ahead and copy these two values, or zoom minimum and maximum, and plug them in like so. And we'll drag off the camera boom again and do set target arm length. Go ahead and set it. Drag off the false on our branch here. Plug that in. And our return value of that will go into the target arm length. And then once again, we'll set our current camera distance. So we'll do set current camera distance. And this is going to go into our output. So we'll go ahead and drag off this and hover over this to add a pin node. Let it go on there. Click our output, and then we'll rename that output. We'll just call it scroll down out. Okay. I'm going to double click this and create a reroute. And then for this part here on the true, if the camera is active and we scroll back out, we want to be able to go back into the third person camera. Obviously, so for this, if it's true, we're going to drag off the true and just plug it straight into our reroute here. So it'll go straight to the output. You can do a couple more here to make it look a little bit nicer. And that is pretty much it. Okay, so lastly, we're going to want to set up the rest of our mouse zoom logic here. So now we have our macro. We can go ahead and click and drag it in here, or type it in by right-clicking and searching for it. Off of our mouse wheel up, we're going to get off our released here and plug that in to our scroll up input. For the released on this, we'll put this into our scroll down input. For the zoom amount, I'm going to, like I said earlier in the tutorial, I think we'll do 25 for this, since from what I've tested, it seems to be a good default value. You'll just want to, once again, make sure that whatever value you put in here is divides evenly into whatever your minimum and maximum are. Off the scroll up out, we're going to want to click and drag off that and do a branch. And then we're going to want to get our camera active index. So click and drag that in here, or search for it. And drag this out over here a little bit more. And we're going to want to check and see whether it is currently greater than 0. So we'll do greater than 0. And off of this, we'll do a not Boolean. If it is not greater than 0, we'll go ahead and increment it. So we'll do increment int, okay? Clicking and dragging off of the camera active index, and that'll increment it by 1 and set it. And after this, we'll just do we'll call our toggle camera event. So we'll type in toggle camera and that'll call it event. Off of the scroll down, we'll once again get another branch here. We're going to basically do, once again, the opposite of what we did above. And we'll get our camera active index once again. And this time we're going to check if it is less than or equal to 0. If it is not, so get our not boolean once again, we'll plug that in. If it is not, we'll go ahead and we'll click and drag off the camera active index once more and type in decrement int. So we're going to subtract it by 1 and set it and drag off the true and plug that in like so. And then lastly, call our toggle camera event again. And that is it. So I'll go ahead and comment this and we'll just, this mouse zoom by camera index, whatever you'd like to call it, and compile and save. Now we'll go ahead and test this. So we'll go ahead and hit play. See if I zoom in. If I zoom in all the way, it'll switch to the first person camera. If I scroll back out, zoom out to my maximum. Let me zoom back in. And there you go. One more thing we'll do is we'll kind of fix up the camera a little bit from the last video. So we'll go into our viewport of our third person camera here and click on the FP camera. I'm going to make a couple adjustments here. So all we're going to do is on the location of the camera, assuming you still have it set up exactly like we did in our last tutorial, it should be about the same as this. On the X, we're going to type in 10. On the Y, we're going to do 17. Go ahead and compile and save. I'll just adjust a little bit to where the arms aren't going up in your face when you're running. So if we go ahead and zoom in now, you can see here that we don't have the hands going up in our face now. So a little bit nicer. Yeah, that's about it. All right. Hope this helped you and enjoy.